Hey folks, how we doing? Hopefully you're enjoying the conference so far, 2 days of it. I didn't see yesterday, but I'm sure it was amazing. We're going to change gears a little bit and talk about AI, agents, payments, including stablecoins. I'm going to cover, so first of all, Colin Banville. So I work in our AI solution architecture team at Stripe. I also happen to lead the agentic commerce side of things, which includes the stablecoin payments. We're going to talk about what changes when agents pay today, move into machine payments, which is relatively new, a little bit more advanced than it was a week ago, and just some key takeaways. So let's have a look at the history. Probably a lot of you don't know that Stripe actually first got involved in crypto way back in 2014. It's a long time ago now. There was Bitcoin acceptance at that point, did that for a number of years, then quietly removed themselves from the crypto space for various reasons. Fast forward to 2021, we've fiat acquiring that launched, so that was for crypto exchanges and marketplaces. 2022 was crypto on-ramping and stablecoin payments launched. Into 24, where we have stablecoin payment launches themselves. And 2025 was the acquisition year, and it's where things really came together for Stripe, shall we say, from a crypto stablecoin perspective. We acquired Privy and we acquired Bridge. And if you haven't spoke to the Bridge guys, I believe they're out in the networking area, so make sure you have a chat with them. If you think of Stripe, it's an infrastructure for financial services, yes, but from a fiat perspective. And what we've built through these acquisitions and Stripe itself is fiat rails over here, but then you have crypto and stablecoin infrastructure over here, so a complete solution for that. Base layer being how the money moves, blockchains, obviously. I'll talk about Tempo, which is our layer 1 payments blockchain in a little bit. We then have Privy, which is our wallet infrastructure, digital asset management, Bridge, so all of the stablecoin, money movement, cross-border, all of that really fun stuff. And then sitting on top of that is Stripe itself in terms of making sure it's agnostic to the payment infrastructure and the rails used. But what we're seeing is, with the explosion of AI, I'm sure you've already heard about it at the conference, it's reshaping paths to purchase. Okay, so the behavior of users is changing. All our behavior is changing. Like, does anybody use Google search anymore? Probably not. It's all in chat to do your research. So AI being the new search is one area where you can now go agentically and actually complete a purchase inside of ChatGPT, inside of Gemini. You've also got AI-powered advisors. So those advisors sit on websites, for example, giving merchants more brand control, but also it can be in the search bar, it could be a pop-up agent that will do discovery and complete the purchase for you, all within your own website. So no third-party involvement there. And thirdly is multi-party agent interactions, and we're going to focus a little bit more on that today. So that's machine-to-machine payments and how we can facilitate that. So if you think about, and I heard the panel beforehand talking about tapping your card and needing to change a kernel for the point of sale systems, right? If we look at what changes or what happens when agents pay, right? When you tap your card, a typical transaction looks like user to merchant, processor, payment rail, fiat, issuing bank, okay? When we introduce agents, we're introducing 2 new agents here. There'll be some type of discovery agent, there'll be some type of payment agent, okay? So a user will give the agent permission to make a purchase or act on their behalf. Okay, the agent then goes, checks out the product that needs to be purchased, it defines the intent to make that purchase on behalf of the user. It then, at that point in time, this is passed to the issuer bank, right? And the issuer bank then does a fraud check, risk scoring, funds are reserved. Once the funds are reserved, the merchant has to then go and approve. Once the merchant approves, the agent actually completes the purchase, right? This is all happening in the background when you go and tap your card. It's an extra layer of complexity when there's an agent involved, okay? So, or multiple agents. And that complexity is more around human commerce, or I'm calling this legacy here, but basically manual checkout. We've all hit the CAPTCHA on the websites where you have to input the code. Agents themselves can reason, and complete complex like complex challenges. But when they go to make a payment, that's where everything kind of falls apart, right? So it's high friction with like CAPTCHAs, batch settlement, which can take days as well, and it's GUI driven, right? So it's for using a mouse. It's for human eyeballs essentially. The new way of looking at that is we need programmatic execution, we need zero friction, right? And we need instant settlement, and it needs to be API driven. Okay, and this is what Stripe is attempting to solve for by releasing only last week our machine payments protocol. So what is the machine payments protocol? It's two layers. Okay, so base layer being Tempo. This is a layer one blockchain that is co-developed with Stripe and Tempo, specific to payments, right? So it provides instant settlement, high throughput. Okay. Sitting on top of that is the machine payments protocol that we released last week. This allows agents to discover, negotiate, and actually complete a transaction. We released it 1 week ago. We've had over 900 agents in the space of that week complete over 34,000 transactions. These are micro-transactions, to point out, but that's significant. I think within the week, that's the same number that the X402 protocol has hit to date. What actually happens if I step you through a machine payments or agent-to-agent transaction? First of all, the agent programmatically requests a resource from a service or to a service. There's a challenge there. The challenge is, okay, right, this is the price. These are the payment methods that are accepted. The agent then goes and verifies and delivers, instantly authorizes a payment, then verifies the resource and actually delivers it instantaneously. How it does that is underneath the machine payments protocol, we have a sessions primitive. So if you're building on this, you don't want to have to go and obviously approve every single transaction. Microtransactions could be a fraction of a cent. The sessions primitive unlocks that. So if you set up for any particular session a predefined amount, and so you could set up, I can spend up to $200 within this context for this session, okay? That unlocks streaming payments with the sessions primitive, and you can go ahead and actually, make multiple transactions, could be 1,000 transactions, up to $200 in that specific session. And it's built so that the payment infrastructure that's used is dependent on what the transaction needs. Okay, so that could be stablecoins, right? So USDC is supported. From a stablecoin perspective, it can be your legacy card rails powered by Stripe, Visa, MasterCard, whatever, or Bitcoin Lightning as well is supported for the instant settlement component. It's zero friction for developers. So if you're an existing Stripe user, it's a very simple setup. You'll see here creating a payment intent. This is a Stripe API for actually processing payments. You change your payment method type to be MPP, right? So it's a very, very simple change to actually go and start using the machine payments protocol. Obviously, for developers as well, full documentation's on our website to set up. But the idea behind this is that it reduces the barrier to entry here, right? So it's very, very simple to get going on this. The protocols themselves, I mentioned X402. I'm sure many people here are quite familiar with that. The difference is, I would say, is the X402 protocol was definitely foundational in terms of like what it was trying to achieve and what it is trying to achieve. Crypto specific. It is exact amount schema as well. The machines payments protocol has tried to build on top of that while fully supporting X402. It's important to point out that we're agnostic to the different payment infrastructures that I just mentioned there. It's using Tempo streaming service for the instantaneous settlement, and it's got built-in expiration, tampering mitigations, and all of that. So sub 100 millisecond latency, microcents. Use cases. There's a number of different use cases that are currently live. I mentioned the number of transactions we've had in the week. AI inference being one of them. That's a per token large language model billing use case. Digital content, so obviously anything behind a publisher paywall, in the future, you want your agent to act on your behalf. Maybe you don't want to subscribe to that whole article. The agent can go and actually make a micro-transaction of a fraction of a cent, which may just pull out 2 sentences within that digital content, right? Whatever it's relevant to the task at hand. Autonomous browsing, browser-based being an example here. So you want to pay per minute for headless compute. You can do that with the machine payments protocol. Real-time search, you've got Tavali and Exa. So within the same session, you can make a request and actually a payment for the search APIs in those examples. So the messaging here is that it's actually real and live today in terms of these use cases that are out in the wild, which is pretty cool. It's scary but cool at the same time. And the key takeaway is that it's a new financial layer for the internet, right? So instant and scalable from a tempo blockchain, layer 1, payment-specific blockchain. And I should point out again, it's agent native as well. So MPP sitting on top of that blockchain, it removes all of the friction that you see with a typical purchase cycle from a human perspective. And I guess the most exciting thing is, as I mentioned with the use cases, is it's actually available now, and you can go ahead and you can build on top of this as developers. And with that, I would say thank you and open up to any potential questions. I see one hand up over there, which is great, because no questions is not necessarily a good thing.
So sorry, I missed the beginning, but I was curious, how many merchants, like, how's the adoption look in the early days of the product?
Yeah, so it's only been released 1 week. We're talking about machine payments protocol here specifically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, as of last week. I mentioned the stat around just over 900 agents, right, and processing over 34,000 transactions. The biggest of those transactions was $35. All of the rest of the transactions, you're talking about microtransactions, so less than $1.
Gotcha. Okay.
Question in here.
I think you mentioned something about a discovery layer at the beginning of the talk. How are you guys thinking about discovery of services? Like, the agents need to find these services to pay for. What does that layer look like?
Yeah, so I think it's discovery agent I was talking about. In that instance, a discovery agent would be like, needs to find exactly what it's looking for. I think from the use cases that have been seen so far, it's using the likes of a browser base. So for your autonomous browsing, you don't need to set up a browser-based account or anything like that. But you're just charging for the per minute usage of that. Browser base allows the agent with a predefined spec in terms of what you're looking for to go off and be able to find that information. From the agentic perspective and that payments flow, when I'm talking about discovery agent to payment agent, that's definitely more like a retail-focused solution, right? So product SKUs specifically. But for the machine payments protocol, obviously looks a little bit different. It will sit in the likes of these new browser-based type solutions that are popping up, as it is right now. Hopefully that answers your question. Do you want one or two more questions up there?
1 second.
Sorry. So, do you imagine the MPP being also deployed not only in payments, perhaps in the real economy, but also in trading, DeFi, vaults? How do you imagine that agentic interaction in your blockchain?
Yeah, good question. I think the short answer to that is absolutely. Are we anywhere close to it just yet? I would say no. Right. Again, this is a new primitive that's only released for over a week. As the use cases come up, and this is the same thing that happened, we released the Agentic Commerce Protocol the end of last year with OpenAI. Same thing, it's use case dependent. We start with retail, we move across industry. And so absolutely, in terms of like trading, DeFi, potentially there's a solution there, but I don't know what that looks like right now. But yeah, absolutely possible.